Hello and welcome to Progressive Mindset with myself, Bradley Monday.
And me, Jason Kemsley.
It's always got to be weird. Always got to be weird on the mic.
There's something quite, appealing about everyone. I think everyone as a child has wanted to...
Wanted a big microphone. Down to business, man. This episode, we're going to talk about right people, right customer, and then we're going to flip and we're going to talk about getting rid of wrong person, wrong customer. And we're going to cover the whole suite.
Let's end it with the scary part, shall we? Because everyone might switch off now if we jump straight into the negative.
We're going to start
bit.
positive.
Let's start with the positive. So, right people. Everyone obviously wants the right person or selection of people in their business. There's always a human element. Doesn't matter if you're an AI company, there's a human element, whether it's account management, sales, whatever it is.
And it's always going to be your biggest headache. People are always going to be the biggest headache.
You sound like you're talking from experience. The bags would suggest
cheers, mate. They're unpredictable, right? There are many things you can predict, but people are not one of them. So
that's another episode on unpredictability and predictability. So we need to first start at how do we identify what the right person is? Because right person looks different for every business. Someone that thrives in one business could go into another business doing the exact same thing and not thrive. So how do we, to kick us off, how do we find that right person?
For sure. So as you said there, the very fabric of every business means that different people with different traits fit in different organizations. So let's start by taking our A players. So we're assuming there's a team of some size, be that 3, be that 10, or more. Let's go and look for our A players, and let's jot down what we see as their best traits. What do they bring to the table for your business? If you're a partnership or there's more than one person that can get involved in this, I absolutely advocate doing this as a group exercise with your leadership team, if you've got one, your partner, that sort of stuff. It's quite a difficult one to do on your own because you get a very one-sided view. And then what we're going to do with those attributes that we've come up with, we're going to have collected quite a few, I reckon. We're going to start to merge those in. If they're the same, let's combine those in. Let's get rid of ones that play top trumps and keep the really important ones, getting rid of those ones that aren't most important, until we get to about somewhere between 3 and 7.
Yeah,
that's about right. And then we've started to build out our core values. We need to build out.
And they have to be impactful. You don't have 6 for the sake of 6. If you've got 3 really good ones and 3 wishy-washy ones, I call them, you take those 3 good ones. We want this to be the epicenter, the core.
You're going to use this for hiring and firing. You're going to use this to ensure that everyone's rowing in the same direction, right?
Culture.
We've got the right people. Yeah, it begins to form culture. So they've got to be relatable and impactful. Like you said, there is no point in having the 7 just for the sake of we need more words to go on the wall, right? Let's just go for the good stuff here.
So we've got 3 to 7. Let's flip it quickly. What if someone doesn't have a team? How do they find that? The first thing I would say is you don't take your 3 or 7 core values. Your business core values are not the owner or leader's core values. They are a reflection. They resonate, like you often say, but they're not a direct replica of what you believe in.
For sure. Otherwise, we're going to find more of us. When we're already doing what we do best, like we need other people with other skill sets within our business. So, you know what? A lot of people don't do the whole core values thing before they have at least a small team, because I think it takes a team to create a culture. You can't be a culture of one is it's just you, right? So, I would almost be mindful of doing this exercise when you are initially growing your team. You're always going to be a roll of the dice when you take on employee number 1, right? So once you got that first person, second person, that sort of stuff, that's a good time for me to start this process. Get them in early, just not too early before you've had people influence your business.
Once you've got one of those people that you think, wow, I need more of this.
Oh, for sure.
You're ready, and you can start that process. So we find 3 to 7. That creates, as we said, that that foundation, that pillar. These are the things we look for, and then, as you said, that now feeds into your culture, feeds into your hiring process, feeds into even your interview to some degree. Hey, these are our core values. If you don't resonate with them, you're not going to thrive here.
Yep. Use it for exactly that. It's to scare the wrong people off as much as it is to attract the right people in. This is people that resonate with these thrive within our organization, and if you don't resonate with these things,
not a problem.
Then
it's not a problem. But
you just don't belong. You're not going to do well, and you are doing people a favor if by identifying this early on. Let's not waste anyone's time.
And this is a quick exercise, right? This isn't a long exercise. And if you stop one person over the next year, you have saved yourself maybe some HR costs, maybe 6 months of trial and error. There are huge rewards if it happens and helps just once. So it is really, I know it's called core values, but it really is at the core of what you have to create, because if you start wrong, you descend further off the track.
The disruption from getting a wrong person in your team it's costly. It creates a focus diversion.
It can get rid of the right people. It can push the right people out. It can make them drop down to not the right people. Sometimes we've seen.
Yep.
Okay, so right, and we'll come on to what if they're the wrong one and you've mistaken.
It's easy to slip into.
Yeah, and that's a scary topic, right? So yes, it's all very good and well, and you want to have the right people in your business. But if you have lots of the wrong customers, you're not going to really be able to attract and maintain and retain good talent and good, what we're calling then A players or right people. So, and I've got lots of things to talk about on this, but how do you get the right customer?
This is your area of expertise, man. Is you bring these customers in, good and bad. You can absolutely identify what your target market is and who you want to work with. In the same way, if you go, you're fishing with a big net, you're going to get some sharks in there as well. It
depends how big the net is, I guess, but
it depends how big the holes are. So. Yeah, I definitely advocate. Let's go and work out who's our ideal audience. You're going to have a way better result if you target the right people, for sure.
Absolutely.
Over to you to talk about how. Okay, so we've caught a shark in our net. Well, how do we find them, identify them, and throw them back overboard?
So I think some of it unfortunately comes with experience. So in what I do, I've learned, I've picked up on signs that are repeatable or repeat in people who are wrong fit. So, there's definitely an element of this that people are not going to be able to grasp overnight. There's no follow these three things and you're going to be able to spot it. A good person that is talking to customers almost shines the core values out externally as well. So when talking with a potential or whoever it may be, one of the things I'm looking for is there any red flags here as to where you really are different to our core values? Mm-hmm. Because we've created this foundation based on these core values. If these are wildly different to what you expect or how you typically work, immediately failure. We're going to have it might be successful for 6 months, might be successful for 12 months, but eventually you will reach a bit of an impasse.
You've just touched on expectations there as well. I think that's a key word, and that is something that you have within your grasp and within your control. Whether you've got a packaged product or a service, you should have a fair understanding of what the boundaries are as to what that service or product can and cannot achieve.
Absolutely.
So getting that across to your customer as well, making sure that that's in alignment,
absolutely,
is super key, and can very quickly identify someone that, hey, they might be the right person and they might fit all of these things. They just have a very different need to what you're able to offer, right? And it's important to, and I think very, very easy in the earlier days when all you want to do is sign that next customer.
Absolutely.
We want to make sure that we're saying no to business is okay and qualifying people out as quickly as you can. It's going to pay you dividends.
It is. And it's easy to say, right, sitting in the position we sit in, but taking on the bad customer is I'm not sure what the direct correlation is, but for every 3 customers you take on a bad one, and it can remove profit, it can remove happiness, it can remove culture, it can remove good people, it can really can start to stack up. So yeah, expectations definitely there. Judging from that aspect there, core values slightly. The other thing is talking about what success looks like. So it is very obvious if you've got a product or whatever, they want to buy that product, that's success. Taking it a step above that, what does success look like? So I'm always, and I advocate this to anyone, I'm always super honest about what success looks like for us.
Yeah,
success for us is
partnership?
We're working together in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, whatever that may be.
Yep.
Success is if you have a problem that you just can't get the help you need, you can reach out to me and I will happily rip up your contract if we have done a bad job or whatever. It's about knowing what success above that transaction looks like and their business goals. And the final thing, and I think this is probably the biggest thing people don't do, is I share as much vulnerability as they do. And what I mean by that is whenever you are working with a new customer, all you ever talk about is what you're good at. And that makes it like every other engagement. It's very unhuman. They know the purpose of it. You want them to work with you or whatever. Making it human, making it an interaction that is memorable and different and all of the good things, is share those vulnerabilities. Hey, actually, let me be honest here. We're a little bit crap at that, but the thing you're doing, we're really good at. We're a bit rubbish at maybe the follow up after this call. So we're not going to hassle you because, we want you to do it for the right reasons or whatever. Whatever the thing is that you're not as good at, you obviously don't go into absolutely everything.
Yeah, I mean, you almost
play it to your strength.
You turn that into a strength there, right? Is, hey, we don't follow up on sales like we do because we don't want to hassle you. It's just, hey, we don't do that very well, but we're coming at it from a good spot.
Absolutely, and it's that. For me, it always comes back to integrity. Is if you sign up or if you take on a customer for the sake of it because you're trying to hit a number or because you're trying to take a bigger salary or whatever it is, eventually that's going to catch you out. Eventually that will catch you out. If you're taking them on for the right reasons, to do the right thing, to do what you do well, you're typically in line with. So vulnerability is a big one for me, and I would end it with never be scared to walk away.
Yeah.
Never be scared. We've had times we have not grown as much as we thought we was going to grow because, and we don't, sometimes unbeknown to a lot of people, we've said no to some, or not no, but we've qualified them out.
Pass them across to someone in your industry that that actually they suit really well. I think that
become the trusted advisor.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just because they're not right for you doesn't mean that they aren't going to be a great customer for someone else. So it always pays to know who your competitors are, and we should all be doing those SWOT analyses so we know what they're good at and where their strengths are, and you can fire them in that direction. I think that pays dividends for everyone.
A bad customer is really, super. It does spread. It's like the wildfire, etc. You take on a bad customer, it can spread, turn right people, etc. Like I said, so never be scared to turn away someone that doesn't fit. Just do it in a way with integrity, like you said.
Agreed.
Pass them on to someone else, etc.
And I think we're itching here to get into the to the bad. You keep coming back round, right?
So bad people.
So let's go.
We've had some.
Let's get into it. I think
everyone's been through it.
I think everyone's had bad people and
bad friends. This isn't a business only analogy, right? This is, you have a bad friend in a friendship group, or
and they come in different shapes and sizes for all of these things, right? Is some people are just actively, but they're lazy, or they've just got bad traits that you don't want. Sometimes it's not through lack of trying. Some people just don't have the capacity to deliver what you need them to deliver in this transaction, right? There's many different things. I think you need good ways of identifying them early on, working with them if possible. I think in terms of capacity, sometimes that can be trained, and you can grow and you can develop, and other times you've hit a ceiling, and actually try as you might, it's not going to work. So having tools and ways in which you work out whether someone is good enough, I think, to be within your business. Again, it goes back to our previous episode where we were talking about setting accountability and making sure that we've got the metrics in to know, and people should be able to identify in themselves, am I right to be within this business? And I think that pays in terms of those people that aren't meant to be here. If it's abundantly clear they're not meant to be here, you don't want to be somewhere. Yeah, if I'm at the party and it's blatantly obvious that no one wants me to be at the party, I'm probably going to go home early, right? Yep. And so that
it's
obviously doesn't happen.
It's painful for both sides is the key thing, is if they're the wrong person, they're likely not enjoying it. They're likely not thriving. They're not getting maybe the career progression that they wanted, or maybe they won't get to where they wanted because they're just being, and that could be the employer's fault, it could be the person's fault. There's no pointing of the finger here. If you have a wrong person in your organisation, it's not that you've done something wrong. It might not be that they've done something wrong. There's many different factors. Not a good fit as well.
Yeah.
And so how, I think integrity probably comes back into this conversation a little bit, but maybe before we jump into how, let's talk about the importance of removing the right person, because when we had the first wrong person, it is scary. The idea of removing someone that you think you need, everyone thinks.
Yeah, I think, especially in a smaller business, when you rely on everyone that you've got, whether they're good or bad, is they're still doing some element of work.
Someone else is going to have to pick up.
Absolutely. And what does everyone else think about this when they're gone, and that sort of stuff? And if you're a UK business, you've got the whole HR piece that really doesn't work in an employer's favour that you've got to navigate as well, right? There's just so many different things, and that's again a focus being withdrawn from what you should be really working on to be elsewhere. And I think that's the main driver for getting these individuals out of your business, is they are a distraction to your goals.
And it is incredibly important. As scary as it is, we've sat in presentations together where people have told us, wrong customer, wrong person, get rid of them as soon as you can. And the first time we experienced it, I think we can both say honestly, it didn't happen quickly enough for that person or for the business. It was a scary endeavour. And so if there's anything to immediately take away from this podcast, is we know it's scary. We know it can sometimes feel like not the logical step, but you have to do this as quickly as you can. You can't, once you've realised it is wrong, you start the process.
Yeah.
And you don't hold on and try and work around it, etc., because it doesn't ever pay dividends.
Yeah. But be consistent. So consistency with people, good and bad, is super key. To allow something to bubble away because it's just not working, but you continue to progress as if it's sweetness and light, and then one day you snap. That's, people don't know how to handle that, right? That's going to get rid of good and bad. You've got to be consistent. People need to know that there's a problem up front, early on.
Yep.
Talk about that problem.
Which just to add quickly, if it comes as a shock to them that they are underperforming,
that's your failure.
You have failed as a leader. I just want to throw that in there now. If you speak to this person and, I didn't know I was failing. You have failed. And you might think you've been clear and crystal clear, etc. But if it's a shock to them, you have failed to be concise, clear, to the point, and set out your expectations moving forward. Sorry, continue on that point.
And quite often you'll find that people don't like, again, going back to that, people don't like to be in a bad spot or to be underachieving. So quite often people will make up their own minds as to, hey, I can see where this is going. I'm better off elsewhere. I've always personally been very open about that conversation of, when there is a problem, let's have that early conversation of, is it right for you to be here? Sometimes they'll go, actually, I've worked out that I don't fit here.
Yeah.
And you can have a really positive move on. We had one example that I can really vividly remember is we had an individual that he was the right person in terms of culture, in terms of fit, but our industry and our dynamic as a business was just a little bit too fast paced for them. And so it came to that point where we agreed to part ways. And I actually got a reference call a couple of weeks later. You know, it's not very often that someone goes, I had a bad experience there. You know, I didn't, not a bad experience, but I didn't get on. It wasn't, Are they going to say good things about me? And I was actually able to ask about the role and identify that actually this is the sort of role that we'd talked about this person going into. And I explained why they didn't
And they wouldn't
work.
have been able to get it unless they'd taken that first step, right? We were the first step on the ladder for them.
Understanding why they weren't meant to be here and why it wasn't working was super key, and we discussed it at length. And they got that. I know they went on to get this job. You know, through that reference was certainly a part of that. Was we talked about how the traits that they did have that meant that they were likely going to thrive in this next role. It was slower paced. They were able to focus on one thing, which was part of what they needed in their role that didn't happen with us. And so often it doesn't have to be this horrible thing that everyone associates with getting rid of wrong people. There's the human element. Yes, we're running businesses and we have something that we need to look after, but you also think about that individual and handled right, majority of time actually there can be a positive outcome at the other end.
Absolutely. And what if there isn't a positive outcome? So we spoke about leadership styles in a previous episode. I struggle a little bit with that directness. What if there isn't? What if it's not well received? What if the role is a means to an end, or whatever you want to call it for them, and actually they quite enjoy it, but just can't quite fulfill the needs of the business? Because you are going to get scenarios, right, which are a bit harder.
For sure, so I think let's first of all work out, are they the right person? Are they doing that? Are they that core values fit? Because if you've got the right person and actually they're just in the wrong role within your business, then perhaps we've got... I'm not advocating, before I say this, that you keep people on because you don't have the skills to get rid of them. But I am advocating going, this person lives and breathes what we're about. Is there another role within our business that they should be doing? And we've had that. We've had people that joined in sales and ended up in accounts because actually that was what motivated them, and that sort of stuff. We've had people in tech roles that ended up in
operations move, to compliance, and there's lots of, and it's harnessing their true passion, their true skill, and that only came because of the honesty and integrity that was showed to them. Hey, what are the bits of your job you really enjoy? How can we do more of that? Because that's when you thrive and you probe a little bit to see where they are. I think, some of them obviously don't go super well with the wrong person.
If you've got the wrong person, and I don't think there is a way to, or I've not come up against. There are things in business that are not going to be comfortable. Absolutely. If it was super comfortable, then I think everyone would do it. So there are going to be times where you are going to get a terrible reaction when it comes to that moment where they have to unfortunately move on. I think that is just something that you need to...
Absolutely. I'd love to share a top tip here.
Go for it.
It might not be a top tip in any way, but I have a mechanism of being able to be direct if I need to. And there's something I think about which hopefully resonates with someone. Otherwise, I've just taken 30 seconds of everyone's listening. If there's a bad person and I know something has to happen, but I really, really don't like confrontation, which I think almost every person or the vast majority of people don't enjoy, I remind myself that wrong person is ruining it for the right people. That is the thing that pushes me to do the difficult thing that I didn't want it to do. Is actually I care a lot about those right people. They usually become friends, or they really are a good person.
You're doing the right thing by the wider team.
Absolutely, and I think that's a super key thing. Is if you ever find yourself in that difficult position of having to do something you don't enjoy, for me, I think about, well, if I don't do it, I'm doing a disservice to the people that are the bright people and thriving. And it's a good point to touch upon. We've seen it from experience, and I'm sure many else have. Let's say you've got a team of 10. A team of 10 right people, I would take any day over a team of 18 with 2 wrong people.
Yeah, the magnet is so difficult to quantify quite often, but the magnitude of impact they can have on the people that surround them is phenomenal. And the longer you keep them,
It's not logical. We are logical people, and it's not logical. But if experience has shown us nothing, the impact is more than possibly you can imagine. It's the only thing I think, certainly I've experienced in 12 years. It just doesn't make sense, but it works.
And when you see, so all your people, hopefully they've all got numbers that they need to hit and they're accountable for. Seeing them boost up when those bad people go, and actually team health, happiness, and all that sort of stuff improve wildly. I think if nothing else, that should be your reason for doing it. And I think you can sleep easy at night as long as you've done the things that we've mentioned, which is to be open from the start and be fair throughout and consistent to your people. Actually, you gave it a damn good go. It didn't work out.
Yeah.
And you can accept that.
And final thing on that, there is often, and we've seen it sometimes, there is often a correlation between profit percentage and percentage of wrong people in the business. Sometimes having the wrong people actually, not because of the cost of employing them, but because of the pulling the team down or whatever, can lead to the profits not being where you thought they were going to be, or there can be a direct correlation between the two. And actually, if you have a team of 16 that do just as much as the 18, but you've got rid of 2 bad people, you're in then a better place to better reward those 16, and create more longevity. And so there is a correlation. This isn't just because that's the wrong person and we want to be more efficient, whatever. This is directly linked to the health of your business as well. This isn't they're wrong, maybe it doesn't work culturally, or whatever. This is the entire picture changes from this one decision. So wrong customers.
Absolutely. So I think there's not too much difference in terms of it's not going to it's never comfortable to get rid of any one or any company customer. But for the same reasons, I think we need to look at it. So for the same reasons that it creates team unhappiness, departures of good people,
even profitability sometimes.
Profitability, for sure. And the impact for other customers, especially in a services business. If you're in a services business and you've got that one customer that's sapping your time,
even though they might look profitable, right? And I think we both got a similar example in mind, but it looked profitable. It looked about where we wanted or needed it to be, with fluctuations. But what we couldn't measure was the impact on everyone else, the impact on culture,
the wider
Absolutely.
business impact. And again, going to begin to sound like a broken record here, but we be consistent with these people.
Absolutely.
I think we're obviously from a services led industry, and that's also where I think you get longer engagement with a customer. If you're selling a product or then that tends to be quite transactional. It's a one and done scenario. Services, you tend to have much longer relationships with your customers.
Interactions.
And so let's be consistent with those as well, and open and honest. Hey, this isn't working. If they're the right partner, then absolutely they're going to want to work with you on these things, and they're going to try and fix them. And as you go through the process, if it's clear that that's not going to work, or there's not an alignment, then maybe you need to have that difficult conversation, right?
And I think the same, in my brain, I love to keep the takeaways. The takeaways are the same. Is be consistent. If they're shocked, you haven't been clear about what it looks, where not necessarily falling short, but hey, the way you speak to the people over here is not great, or whatever it may be. If they're shocked, you haven't fulfilled your end of the bargain. You have to be clear and consistent about that messaging. And then the final one, and very similar to the wrong person, is it can be a positive. It's never going to be hugely positive usually, but do it in a way that's always fair, the same as it would be of the wrong person. If you are fair, and I think of this, 'cause sometimes in your head you probably, or I certainly think, oh, let's get rid of him tomorrow. That's so silly. Be fair. Be treated the way you want to, or treat the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, it's that integrity piece, right?
Absolutely.
And just making sure that you give, if it's what's this, to understand the impact that we're going to have on this customer if we end that service, whatever it might be that we're delivering, and make sure that it's done across a reasonable time period for them to. No one wants to. You wouldn't like if it happened to you with your business suddenly having a gaping hole because a service has been removed. The right thing to do is to have an adult conversation about, hey, this isn't working. How long do we need? Yeah, that can be a two-way. That can be a two-way thing. But
and sometimes if you're not reciprocated with that maturity, it can turn sour. Just like with the wrong person, if you're not, a maturity feels like the right word. It may not be. If you're not getting the same level of maturity back about the scenario you find yourself in, it can go sour. I work with one thing sort of that lingers in my head, and I think we've talked about this. Sales, wrong person, wrong customer. It doesn't matter what it is. I hope to treat everyone in a way where customer or no customer, employee, not employee, if I see you in a bar or a corporate event or whatever, we could have a beer together.
Yeah,
I don't drink, so I don't know why I said have a beer together. But
I think it's a good ethos
in a way that makes you feel. I approached it correctly. I handled us well. I handled the brand well, and we bowed out politely.
Yeah. So I think before we wrap this up, we need to talk about the practicalities around letting a customer go. There's obviously the financial element.
Absolutely.
And we did this with a customer that just wasn't working out, that was actually worth a fair amount of revenue that came in on a monthly basis. And again, that really drives up the fear factor of going, this just isn't working out, Mr. Customer. We're gonna have to part ways. And it's working. Let's talk about some methods of, I guess, insulating yourself from that impact of losing that money.
So let me just start with saying the currency in this example is money. You have to weigh it up against the currency of culture, staff happiness, etc. The reason it was so scary is because as an owner, the first thing you look at is the number. That is what you've been drilled to do, and that has become a repeatable thing that has usually yielded results. The currency of everything else that goes alongside it is equally as important in these scenarios, and so the number is not the full picture. Although for us, it was a moment of, ooh, do we really want to do this?
It's a factor, but revenue without any profit, assuming that this customer is being noisy and that sort of stuff, and is very expensive to deliver. That tends to be one of the primary reasons that someone wants to get rid of a customer is revenue without profit is, it's a vanity metric, because there's no point in doing it. So that's key. As long as you can look after your staff, and that
when we were quite honest with them, we said, hey, look, we know you don't want to work with this person. This is how much they're worth. We can't afford to lose someone else.
The openness
until we've replaced it and we had that adult conversation of, we get it, we'll replace it, but we need you to make sure everyone else is super happy in the meantime, because it's a bit of a scary period. We've prepared for it. We've made sure cash flow, everything's okay. Now, can you just, we'll give you all of ours and we'll say goodbye to it, because we're on your team and we are one team. But in return, for a couple of months, please just make sure everyone else is good, and we'll go and make sure that it's
we're going to have
replaced
to drive
with a nice alternative.
Absolutely. So finding the revenue, or at least some of the revenue. You don't want to overwork.
Absolutely.
Work the team, but finding some of that just to buffer things before you say goodbye. So over communicate with your team, right?
Absolutely. And just like what I said about the good people, and the right people, I think I'd rather have 10 really good customers than 18 and 2 really bad ones.
I agree with that.
And I think that's, again, where we sit in a privileged position to be able to say these things. If someone's a one-man band or there's 2 of you or whatever, sometimes a bit more difficult to put into principle. But it's much more difficult to take a step back and do the firing. If you take someone on, they're not the right fit, it serves a purpose sometimes at the start, but the headache's going to come. You are giving yourself a future headache, whether you like it or not, or wish to run away from it in that moment. Is you are giving yourself more problems when you're busier, when you have more going on, you have more happening, and so
it's definitely a band-aid. You've got to rip it off quick, otherwise it's going to be pulling hairs, right? It's
I like that.
Yeah. This is a topic that I don't think we could go on for a very long time. I immediately want to get into how do we look after the good people? What are the tools? And it's definitely worth us having a look, see if we can find some of our documented tools to throw in the show notes, just so that there's some takeaways here. So we'll go and have a dig through the laptop, see if we can do that.
Yeah, I'll just quickly run through the final ones, which was the integrity. We talked a lot about integrity. We talked a lot about how much one bad person can have and not being scared of it. And more importantly than not, I think the key thing to take away from this is consistency. Is consistency of message, consistency of communication, consistency of expectations. And if your customer or your person, it comes as a shock, you're going to have a look in the mirror, I'm afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. Check it's not you, but the consistency piece allows you to do that.
Absolutely.
Right. We're getting a fairly consistent view as to is it me, is it them? So
absolutely. Well, should we wrap it up?
I think that's
see you on the next episode, I think.
Till next time.
Thanks.